The lights of my house gleamed brightly in the darkness as I drew into the driveway. It had been a long, arduous business trip, and all I wanted was to hug Patricia, my wife, in my arms, pour myself a hard drink, and sleep for a week straight. Imagine my amazement when I found the front door unlocked. Patricia must have forgotten to bolt it, I thought, shaking my head with a chuckle. Little things like these made her all the more endearing to me. I opened the door quietly, wanting to surprise her. The house was silent, and the lights dimmed, signaling she was probably asleep. I walked to our bedroom, my heart full with warmth and love. But when I pulled the door wide, that warmth turned into stinging cold. Patricia, my Patricia, was in bed with Ethan, my best buddy. Ethan, the sight of them together was like a strike to the gut. My thoughts swirled, unable to fathom the scene before me, but the sound of my sudden intake of breath shocked them awake. Patricia shrieked, pulling the covers around her, and Ethan got up, cursing. They glanced at me with wide, scared eyes. I felt my world disintegrate, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. My father's visage flashed before me, a bitter remembrance of another betrayal from years before. This was a road I'd walked before, and I knew what I had to do. I didn't shout, didn't cause a scene. Instead, I let out a frightening laugh. A surprise indeed, I remarked, my voice chilly. Get dressed, both of you. We'll talk about this later. I turned around and walked out, leaving them in their astonishment and guilt. As I went to the guest room, my mind began whirling. This was a game of chess now, and I was a grandmaster at it. Over the next 2 weeks, I made sure to isolate myself from Patricia and Ethan. I was still friendly with them, but I never allowed them see beyond my polite smiles and false words. All the while, I gathered evidence of their affair, gathering emails, texts, pictures, anything that could suit my goal. Ethan, the fool, was simple to influence. I understood his flaws well, greed and ambition. So I exposed him to a fantastic investment opportunity, a sure-shot way to enhance his wealth. The catch? It was a phony scam, but Ethan, dazzled by the possibility of rapid money, didn't see through it. Patricia, on the other hand, was battling her own problems. I could see the guilt eating at her, making her restless. She wanted to confess, but I played on her worries. If Ethan finds himself in any legal trouble because of this investment, I might be able to help him, I assured her. So she kept her secret, and I kept mine. As Ethan's financial condition worsened, I stepped in as the benign buddy, offering him a loan. The only condition? He had to put up his shares in a tech business as collateral. He was hesitant, but the risk of becoming bankrupt prompted him to comply. Patricia finally confessed, her face pallid, her eyes full of tears. I put on a surprised expression, professing to forgive her. I convinced her that we should help Ethan out of this dilemma. She agreed, and with her own funds, acquired the shares from Ethan for a throwaway price. Then the deception was exposed. The investors were left impoverished, Ethan among them. The legal repercussions of his involvement assured he couldn't recoup his financial situation. Patricia was left with nothing but the sinking shares of the IT company. Finally, I shared my knowledge of the affair. Patricia's face went ashen as I recounted my precise plot of retaliation, how I had exploited their weaknesses and used their own faults against them. I'm filing for divorce, Patricia, I told her, my voice bereft of any emotion. But, Martin, she stuttered, but I cut her off. No more lies, Patricia. No more deceit. You made your choices, and these are the consequences. The aftermath of my retaliation was a hollow victory. I had won the game, but the taste of triumph was bitter. I gazed at the rubble of my life, my marriage, my relationship, all poisoned with betrayal and revenge, and felt a sense of regret. As I sat in my now empty house, I contemplated the man I had become. I had allowed my heart to be poisoned by revenge, just like my father all those years before. But I wasn't going to let this define me. I wasn't going to be a prisoner of my past. So I decided to start over. I sold my house, my cars, everything that served as a reminder of my past existence. I quit from my successful law practice, leaving behind a career that had defined me for the longest time. But I wasn't afraid. I knew I could rebuild, make something greater of myself. I moved to another city, one where nobody knew me or my background. I utilized my fortune to establish up a nonprofit law firm, aiding folks who couldn't afford a skilled lawyer. It was my way of finding redemption, of righting the wrongs I had done. As I worked relentlessly for my cause, I experienced a sense of serenity that my revenge had never offered me. I realized that it wasn't vengeance that I had been seeking, but justice for a young child who had been wounded by his father's adultery, for a man who had been betrayed by the ones he loved. And in that search of justice, I finally discovered my purpose, my salvation. I may have been a guy marked by treachery and revenge, but I was not going to let that be my end. Story 2. I never believed I would find myself in this circumstance. My name is John, and up until lately, I had what looked like the perfect existence. I was a software engineer working at a prestigious company, and I was married to Emily, the joy of my life. We had a comfortable home, good friends, and everything looked to be going well. Emily, a fitness enthusiast, committed a large amount of time to her training. She routinely attended gym sessions with her personal trainer, Mark. At first, I didn't think much of it. I urged her to pursue her passions, to keep healthy and active. But as time went on, I began to observe tiny changes in her behavior. She became aloof, spending more time away from home, and was particularly secretive about her activities. Small indicators that might have gone overlooked by others, but not by me. I couldn't put my finger on it, but something didn't feel right. I started to believe that something was awry, but I had no specific evidence to substantiate my suspicions. One day, while hunting for something in Emily's car, I stumbled upon a folded piece of paper. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. It was a handwritten note from Mark, her personal trainer. The contents of the note suggested a love relationship between them. Shocked and heartbroken, I felt like the ground beneath me was breaking away. I couldn't disregard this revelation. I needed to know the truth, so I made up my mind to gather evidence and confront Emily. I had to be sure before I addressed her. I couldn't simply accuse her without concrete proof. It was a terrible decision, but I knew it was vital to uncover the truth. I decided to take matters into my own hands and set up a covert camera in Emily's car. It was a risk invading her privacy like that, but I couldn't handle the uncertainty any longer. I needed to see the truth with my own eyes. Late at night, while Emily was asleep, I carefully mounted the hidden camera in her automobile. It was discreetly positioned, guaranteeing that it wouldn't be easily spotted. With a mix of hope and dread, I triggered the camera and began the torturous wait for the evidence I badly desired. Days passed into weeks, and I lived in a continual state of anxiety, wondering if my suspicions were genuine. Every evening, I would retrieve the memory card from the camera, excitedly awaiting what it carried. And finally, the moment of truth arrived. I sat in my darkly lit room, heart racing in my chest as I viewed the taped videos. My hands trembled as I fast-forwarded through banal moments, hoping to uncover something that would corroborate or contradict my concerns. And then, there it was. A video that shattered my world. I watched in pain as the intimate moments between Emily and Mark transpired before my eyes. The pain I felt was terrible. It felt as if a knife had been stabbed into my heart, twisting and turning with each treachery documented on that screen. The person I loved and trusted had misled me in the most fundamental way. The nights grew sleepless, and the days dissolved into a shroud of misery. I couldn't imagine how Emily could have done this to me, to our marriage. Anger and betrayal coursed through my veins, fueling a burning urge to confront her and expose her dishonesty to the world. Fueled by a mixture of rage and betrayal, I couldn't keep the truth to myself any longer. The evidence I had gathered was too compelling to ignore. It was time for Emily to confront the repercussions of her actions. The chance presented itself when I learned that Emily was set to give an important presentation at her company. It would be a high-pressure environment with her colleagues and bosses in attendance. I knew it was the best opportunity to confront her and present the evidence of her affair. As the day arrived, I mustered up every ounce of courage I had left. I strolled into the building, my pulse pumping with anticipation and nerves. The presentation had already begun when I surreptitiously made my way to the rear of the room, ensuring I had a perfect view of Emily. She stood firmly at the front, her voice calm as she delivered her carefully prepared speech. But her veneer of innocence was about to disintegrate. With sweaty palms and a voice shaking with passion, I reached the front of the room, carrying the evidence in my hands. As I stood by Emily, the room grew silent, and all eyes turned towards us. "Emily," I continued, my voice shaking with a mix of sadness and rage, "I have something to show you all." I released the hidden camera film, exposing the closeness between Emily and Mark for everyone to see. Gasps of incredulity rippled around the room as her coworkers peered at the screen, their jaws falling in shock. Emily's face grew pale, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and shame. She fumbled, tried to craft words that could possibly justify her actions, but it was too late. The room exploded in a confused mixture of whispers, gasps, and murmurs. Emily's carefully constructed veneer had shattered, and the truth about her infidelity was left naked. Her professional reputation and personal integrity were irrevocably ruined. As I walked out of the room, a flurry of emotions overtook me. I felt an odd combination of relief and grief. The hurt of the betrayal was still raw, but the burden of carrying that secret had been lifted. The truth was out, and Emily could no longer hide from the consequences of her choices. In the aftermath of the confrontation, I took a decision that would further unravel the lives of those involved. I searched out Mark's wife, Lisa, driven by a need for solace and justice. She deserved to know the truth, just as I did. Lisa was a lady who had been betrayed by her own husband, fooled by the same web of falsehoods that had entangled me. It was a tough conversation filled with tears and shared grief. I disclosed the truth about Mark and Emily's affair, laying bare the painful reality that had been kept hidden from her. The discovery shocked Lisa's world to its core. The foundations of trust and love that she had built her life upon had fallen beneath her feet. She had the difficult problem of selecting how to move forward, whether to preserve her marriage or to split ways with a guy who had crushed her heart. The impact from the affair stretched beyond Mark and Emily's personal life. It reverberated through their families, their friends, and their professional networks. The betrayal had triggered a wave of turmoil, exposing flaws in relationships that had once seemed unshakable. As for me, I had made up my mind. I could no longer continue in a marriage polluted by lies and treachery. I filed for divorce, determined to break all links with Emily and embark on a new chapter of my life. The divorce process became a battleground where emotions ran high, and every decision felt like a personal attack. The partition of assets became a cause of friction as we fought tooth and nail to protect what we considered was properly ours. The formerly seemingly happy couple was now embroiled in a vicious court struggle, each party trying to claim victory in their own manner. But amidst the pandemonium and hatred, there were moments of clarity. I realized that fighting over worldly goods would only prolong the suffering and hinder the healing process. I had to redirect my focus towards my personal well-being and reconstructing my life from the ground up. With the help of my friends and family who stayed by my side unwaveringly, I started to reconstruct my shattered sense of self. They became my pillars of strength, offering a listening ear, words of support, and a reminder that I was not alone in my path. Therapy became a critical component of my healing journey. I sought expert advice to navigate the conflicting emotions I was experiencing. It was through therapy that I began to uncover the layers of anguish, betrayal, and self-doubt that had accumulated over time. I learned to forgive myself for not noticing the indications earlier and to understand that the choices of others were beyond my control. Slowly but gradually, I started to reclaim my feeling of self-worth. I focused on my career, throwing my energies into my work as a software developer. The professional realm provided a shelter where I could channel my feelings into something constructive. It offered me a sense of purpose and accomplishment, helping me to regain my confidence one project at a time. As the court battle carried on, I made a conscious effort to rise beyond the bitterness and contempt. I refused to let the betrayal define me or influence my destiny. Instead, I turned my emotions into acts of charity and personal growth. During this stressful moment, I discovered a tremendous strength within myself. The anguish had stripped away the illusions of invincibility and forced me to confront my inadequacies. I recognized that healing was a process that took time, patience, and self-compassion. But just when I believed my heart had become impenetrable to love, a spark of hope entered my life. It came in the form of a kind and understanding woman named Sarah. We crossed paths unexpectedly, and a connection developed between us, an understanding forged from shared experiences of pain and betrayal. Sarah became my confidant, my rock, and my source of peace. She knew the wounds I carried as she had her own struggles to fight. Together, we went on a path of healing and growth, helping each other through the highs and lows of our separate recoveries. As the legal proceedings eventually came to a close, the divorce was formalized. It signified the closing of a sad chapter in my life, but it also signaled a fresh beginning, a chance to recapture my happiness and reimagine my future with Sarah by my side. I started to embrace the concept of self-discovery. I engaged in things that brought me delight, pursued interests that had long been abandoned, and surrounded myself with positive influences. I traveled to new countries, immersing myself in diverse cultures and extending my horizons. As time passed, the scars from the betrayal began to dissipate. They served as a reminder of the resilience I had gained and the lessons I had learned along the road. The anguish converted into insight, guiding me towards a road of self-acceptance and personal improvement. And then, one day, as if by fate, I walked upon a new chapter in my life. I met a kind and understanding woman who echoed the love and kindness that Sarah had provided me. Together, we went on a journey of mutual support, understanding, and the restoration of faith in love and trust.